I grew up going to church. We went, probably 3 out of 4 Sundays. I went to Sunday school. I never really had a personal relationship with Jesus. The pastor would talk about hell, and I didn't want to go there. Why would anybody want to go there? So he would lead a prayer every week to accept Jesus as my Savior, and I would pray it every single week. I believed in Jesus. I just didn't know how to have a personal relationship with him. When I got into high school, I told my parents I wasn't going to go to church anymore. I didn't do anything wrong, so I was not going to go to church anymore. So I didn't. A little bit about my background. My parents are together. They were both in the home, but I didn't have a relationship with my father. As far as father-daughter relationship, there was none. I didn't get any I love yous, no hugs, nothing like that. So I looked for that attention anywhere I could find it. I was also sexually abused as a child. Once I got to college, I became pretty promiscuous. I was seeing a guy that was about 8 years older than me. I didn't let that stop me because, I thought if I gave him what he wanted, he would love me and, everything would be good. So I had gone to the doctor to get on birth control, and I was just waiting for my next period to start taking the birth control. And that period didn't come, so I realized, okay, I'm a couple weeks late. It turns out I was pregnant. I talked to my best friend about it, and she and I decided, yeah, I could do this. I could have this baby. And my mom, I remember, called me at work and said, that her and my dad wanted me to have the baby, so they would help me. So it was decided I was gonna have this baby, and I named her Taylor. So I was all in. I was gonna do it. And then I told the guy that I was with that I was pregnant, and the first thing that he said was, "When are we terminating the pregnancy?" And it was kind of shocking because I had never even thought about that before. He just kept telling me that I wouldn't be able to do it. I was too young. He was not going to help me. It would ruin my life. He was just very, very persuasive. And I was 19 and I was impressionable. For years, I always put the blame on him. I don't do anything I don't want to do. And ultimately, it was my decision. And I made the appointment for the abortion. Went to the abortion clinic. I paid my money. They put you in a room. They don't give you any counseling whatsoever. They don't ask you if you're sure. They don't even prepare you for what is about to happen. And so I sat in this room. It was me, the abortionist, and then another female. And it was the most painful, physically the most painful thing I had ever gone through up until that point. You could hear every sound of scraping and suctioning, and it was absolutely awful. And then they gave me some sort of sedative and I left. I pretty much thought that my life was over. I had so much regret. I couldn't believe that I had just killed my baby. I couldn't believe it. And I was ashamed. I was so sorry for what I had done immediately, that same day. But I didn't speak of it. I didn't speak of it to my parents. I didn't speak about it to my best friend. I definitely didn't speak about it to my boyfriend. I just stuffed it. So I met my now husband, and he was different than anyone I'd ever dated. He was kind, he was a gentleman, he was funny, but he was also a follower of Jesus. So now all my problems should be solved, right? I'm married, I have 2 kids, I replaced the baby that I killed. Not even close. I had this hole in my heart that I was trying to fill with nicotine, alcohol, spending exorbitant amounts of money. I told my best friend what I was going through. I mean, my marriage was in shambles. I was super depressed. I'm too much of a coward to actually kill myself, but I was just at the end of my ropes in 2006. I shared this with my friend, and she said, well, there's this counselor at our church that would talk to me. And I said, okay. Because I met with this woman, and that was the day that I surrendered my life to Jesus. And on that day in 2006, I knew that I was forgiven for my abortion. And my kids were grown, and I'm a busy person, and I'm like, we need to volunteer somewhere. And he mentioned RETA. I did an online inquiry. I met with Joni a few weeks later, and I explained I had an abortion, and she said that she would have to get me in touch with Tanya. So I met with Tanya, and Tanya was, I told her my story, and she said that in order for me to volunteer, I would have to go through this Forgiven and Set Free Bible study. I didn't think I needed any healing from this, but as it turns out, I did. The Forgiven and Set Free Bible study changed my life, period. It changed so many different things about me. It changed my relationship with Jesus. I could see the correlation between my abortion and the way that I parented and the way that I was a wife and a friend and a daughter. It intertwines with everything, and it did in my adult life. I got to learn how much bigger Jesus is than any of that, any of my fears, any of my doubts. We had a memorial service for my baby, and I got to stand up and say her name, celebrate her as a loved child of God and of myself. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened. I always wondered what my purpose was, in this life with my past. But the thing is that Jesus took all of my stain on himself. And now I get to see, when I come in each week and I get to spend time with people that have been through the same thing as me, I get to see God's redemptive power.